when we've allowed the
let's keep
debate
it
to be
going.
defined by a very extreme portion.
That's right.
Who it's not about logic, it's about people throwing tantrums and people going, you have to agree with me, I'm going to compel you to agree with me. Absolutely, kids should be left alone.
You didn't like it, Zion.
I was ignored. I was left alone to do, whatever.
Yeah.
And, perhaps that's not great, but we shouldn't be telling...
You turned out okay.
I turned out fine, No, I'm not the vice president, you know what I mean? But, I have a Rolls Royce. So here's, But the thing is...
I think you're winning in that.
Zion, are you a Kamala supporter,
It's going to
buddy?
get blown up soon.
Are you a Kamala supporter, Zion?
But I'll tell you this. I don't see why we're telling kids about critical race theory or gender theory. Why are we not educating people in math, in reading, in science? Why are we indoctrinating children? And I don't know too many people who are for that. If you meet people in the real world, none of them go.
That's correct.
5-year-olds should learn about identity politics.
Yes.
And nobody's for that.
No, nobody is, and
Very few people are.
And this one I actually feel very personally passionate about.
I mean, Trump.
affects my family.
Rogan is not a guy who does contentious interviews, Zion.
South India.
Rogan lets people talk and hang themselves potentially.
She's born and raised in San Diego, right? Okay, so she is Indian American, but she's like the most assimilated.
Well, I have a daughter, Zion, and
fundamentally
I definitely don't want her.
And we talk about we were able to
getting
fall in
memed
love,
into changing
in part
her
because
sex,
we grew up in the 90s where everybody was like, yeah, okay, it's not perfect. Obviously, there's still racism out there, but judge people based on who they are, not on these immutable characteristics, on their skin color. Just judge people based on whether you have similar values, et cetera, right? And because of that, we fell in love. We had a family. My family's always been welcome to her, and vice versa. And my mom actually put this in a very interesting way that the more that she's noticed this in the last few years, that people are obsessed that we have mixed race children, right? And are they brown? Are they white? Are they Indian? Are they American?
Yeah.
And my mom's just like, well, there are babies, right? That's who they are. There are babies.
Right.
I think that if you really inflame the racial consciousness of people, if they fundamentally think of themselves not as human beings or as Americans, but as members of a racial group, that's just going to fundamentally lead to strife, right?
Yeah.
You want to, in some ways, you want to emphasize the commonality that we have as fellow citizens.
Yeah,
you don't
I'm
want to
lost
say,
here.
okay, you're black, so this means this thing
It's
about
tricky
you,
with the
and
double
that thing about
pawns,
you,
so I
and
can
you're
just-
white, so this means something totally different.
Right.
And I just, that obviously to me, just common sense would lead to conflict. And again, I'm not saying it was perfect, but if you look at both
just gave
black
me
and
that
white
one, at
Americans,
least.
they say that race relations are worse now than they were 20 years ago. So we've ran this experiment of hyper-identity politics-focused
But now,
racial
he's the
consciousness,
opposition,
right?
so
Of
that's a big
constantly
problem.
emphasizing if you're black, you're oppressed. If you're white, you're an oppressor. If you're black, you're colonized. If you're white, you're the colonizer. We've run this experiment
let's just
now for
resign
20
that.
years.